Welcome everybody to the Captain Spot. I'm your host Justin Freeman. 6 foot 1 inches, 284 pounds of fantasy knowledge. That's right, the pounds are flying away. Completely unsustainable, but we are tracking in the right direction, guys. We are rocking and rolling just like the NFL season is. How about that for a segue? It's the divisional round, guys, and we are going to be talking about this Saturday evening contest between the Ravens and the Bills. This game will be 8:15 kickoff. It'll be the late game of the Saturday slate. Bills favored in this game by 2.5 points. Total currently sitting at 50. So this should be a lot of fun. These are obviously two very interesting offenses with mobile quarterbacks. That always makes things interesting. We'll talk about Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson. Before we get too deep, quick reminder, go check out cptspot.com. I've got a copy of the ebook waiting for you. That's the Captain Spot ebook. Everything you could ever hope to know about playing Showdown DFS right there for $34.99. Hop in the store, go pick that up. Also subscribe over on the Captain Spot YouTube channel, youtube.com/thecptspot. That does it for the sales pitch, guys. We are going to talk about the injury report. And obviously there's not a lot to talk about here in the injury report section. Both these teams should be more or less at full strength, with the exception of Zach Moss for the Bills, who has been placed on injured reserve. So obviously he's not popping up on the injury report. He's on IR. So we will be adjusting to a new RB2 type situation there in Buffalo. We'll figure out who some of the likely candidates are to replace Zach Moss behind Devin Singletary. As we talk about the pricing here on this slate, obviously we're going to be drawn a lot towards the quarterbacks. Obviously Lamar Jackson priced at 12.2, Josh Allen priced at $12K. So we can certainly be considering each of those guys. However, I want to encourage just a little bit of caution on Lamar Jackson. Obviously, you saw sort of what Jackson can do when he finds rushing lanes. We saw that in last week's contest against the Titans. He sort of ran all over creation, hit the 100-yard bonus, found the end zone on the score. When he does that, he's going to be in an optimal lineup. There's no doubt about it. You get 100 yards, that's 10 points. A touchdown, that's 6 points. You're up to 16 already. You hit the 100-yard bonus, there's another 3. 19 DraftKings points just off rushing if he can do that. The problem is, can we assume that Lamar Jackson is just this ace rushing asset? And I would say from a touchdown perspective, let's back up just a little bit. We look back at the regular season, just like how many of Baltimore's rushing touchdowns is Lamar Jackson responsible for? Because you would think it would be like half. That was my thought. I went back and looked at this, and I was like, well, Lamar scored half their rushing touchdowns. You know, a little bit of Dobbins, a little bit of Mark Ingram, a little bit of Gus Edwards. But I was surprised to find out 7 out of 24 rushing touchdowns this year went to Lamar Jackson. And so that was substantially less. I mean, J.K. Dobbins sitting at 9 touchdowns, Gus Edwards at 6 touchdowns, Mark Ingram at 2 touchdowns. So overall, like, Lamar doesn't just have some stranglehold over the rushing touchdown upside for the Ravens offense. And that surprised me a little bit because I'm sitting here wondering why, like, Lamar's not popping more in what I'm putting out here right now. And I think that's it. It's like he has the opportunity to score a rushing touchdown this week, no doubt. And you could argue that in the playoffs, quarterbacks are going to lean more on their legs than they do in the regular season. I know Patrick Mahomes has some pretty interesting on-off splits in terms of playoffs versus non-playoff games in terms of his ability and desire to want to rush. But Lamar Jackson tries to rush every game. There's no secrets about that other than a handful of games earlier this year where it seemed like he was maybe a little banged up. So I just want to bring down expectations for Lamar Jackson rushing, especially coming off a game where he hit 100-yard bonus and scored a touchdown. Let's just ratchet that back a little bit. I think Lamar is not a must in our lineups this week. Granted, he could easily be the captain. So understand range of outcomes here as we talk through this. As we talk about Josh Allen, I feel much more confident in his ability to pay off in a number of ways. Like, what if if he does have to use his legs, great. He'll pile up a ton of points that way. If he has to use his arm feel confident Josh Allen's going to be able to throw the ball all over the yard. He and Stephon Diggs have a really unique connection at this point. I feel confident about that, even in a tough matchup against a talented Ravens secondary. Not really sweating that. I feel better about Josh Allen's prognosis of being able to be game script proof than I do about Lamar Jackson. If Lamar finds himself in a 2-touchdown hole early, he could have a tough time clawing back out of that. We've seen that be a problem in the past for Lamar. So, overall, I would prioritize Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson when we're thinking about things that way. As we move on down the position groups here, what I like to focus on a lot is what happened last week. Luckily, both these teams played a wild card game, so we have a little bit of history to choose from as far as okay, we know during the regular season these teams are holding a little bit back. If a guy's not fully healthy, maybe he gets a reduced number of snaps. But in the playoffs, man, everybody is just putting their best foot forward. They're not holding anything back. They're not disguising personnel groupings or anything like that. You're seeing what they want to do right now. And as we look through the depth charts, we've got a really clear understanding of the receiver rotations on both teams. So on the Bills side, you've got Stephon Diggs. He ran 39 routes last week. John Brown, 39 routes. Cole Beasley, 32 routes. There it is. There's your 3-wide set. No doubt about it for Buffalo. Now, I would encourage you to go back and look at the box score for John Brown. I believe he got 4 targets in the game last week, but ran 39 routes, didn't catch any of them. He is a prime bounce back candidate here this week. The peripheral numbers are still there for John Brown. Ignore small game sample size on the actual production and chase the opportunity. The opportunity is there for John Brown. As we look behind that, Gabriel Davis still ran a pretty high 24 team routes. So not terribly far behind the Cole Beasley tier there, but clearly operating as the number 4 wide receiver. Certainly be sure to sprinkle him in some lineups. $5,600 for Gabriel Davis. That compares to $11,000 for Stephon Diggs, $5,800 for John Brown, and $7,800 for Cole Beasley. I would sort of encourage you to consider playing John Brown over Cole Beasley here in this game. Now, Beasley has had a tremendously underrated season so far this year. Got to give him his props, but overall, I want to chase the opportunity, and the opportunity seems to suggest that John Brown should be a full-time guy out here. As we look at the tight end position for Buffalo, Dawson Knox, $4,600, has started to become more of a thing here lately. He ran 23 routes. That's one shy of Gabriel Davis's 24. And he's clearly the guy there. Lee Smith, 3 routes. You can't use anybody else. You can't use Isaiah McKenzie, who ran 2 routes. You can't use Reggie Gillum, who ran 2 routes. These guys are just off the table. You want to limit your player pool right there. Now, at the running back position for Buffalo, you do have Devin Singletary as a guy we can use, and he ran a ton of routes too. $7,200 for Devin Singletary. He'll get a feature back role. I am very interested in playing Singletary this week. The question is figuring out who the RB2 could be there in Buffalo. I think there could be some value opening up depending on how the transactions fall for the rest of the week. Currently, there are 3 running backs on roster for the Buffalo Bills. They are Devin Singletary, Tywan Jones, and TJ Yeldon. Now, we haven't seen Yeldon play since week 5. He's been inactive every week for the entire second 2/3 of the season. However, he was the guy who filled in for Zach Moss in weeks 3 through 5 when Moss was injured during that period of time. So could Yeldon pick back up there? He is on the active roster. Tywan Jones has been used almost exclusively as a special teams guy. I don't foresee him being a legitimate option to take over the Zach Moss role. I think Yeldon is the more likely guy if he's called up and active. Okay. Now the problem is we want to make sure we have a real firm grasp of who's on the active roster, because that can change over the course of a week. As of right now, there are 3 running backs that are currently sitting on the team's practice squad, and any of those guys could potentially be called up, throw a monkey wrench into this whole thing. And if they do, I think there are some interesting names to consider. Antonio Williams was the guy who got the start in week 17 for the Bills. He's currently on the practice squad, and so long as he stays there, he's not a guy we have to worry about. But we do want to keep an eye on him. And then, there's some other practice squad type guys that aren't even in the player pool at this point. So, you could see a Devontae Freeman, who was added to the team earlier this week. He could pop up on game day, but he's still currently sitting on the practice squad as well. So I think overall, I'm really mostly interested in it being TJ Yeldon. And if Antonio Williams were to get called up to the active roster, I'd want to make sure we check those game day inactives to get that part right. Antonio Williams, 1,200. TJ Yeldon, 1,400. Not interested in playing both of them, but only one of them based on what we determine at the time of the game. On the Baltimore side, that running back rotation has really been slimmed down. Mark Ingram, once again, inactive last week. So we are expecting to go potentially the rest of the playoffs without Mark Ingram unless they maybe see some sort of matchup fit to throw him in. But they're going to play 3 running backs. It's going to be J.K. Dobbins as the lead guy, Gus Edwards as a very close number 2, and then Justice Hill as a very distant number 3. And so all those guys are certainly in consideration as we are making our lineups just for different reasons. Like Justice Hill, its price point, $200. He ran 4 routes last week. You're really just banking on a big play salary savings type lineup when you're building with him. $8,600 for J.K. Dobbins as the lead guy, but only $2,600 for Gus Edwards, just severely underpriced there based on the role he has in that offense. Probably has as good a chance as anybody to score a touchdown. That includes Lamar Jackson as far as rushing goes. So we're interested in all those guys. Now the receiving rotation has certainly narrowed down there in Baltimore as well, where it's pretty clearly Marquise Brown is the number 1 guy. He's $9,600. Mark Andrews obviously at tight end, $8K. And then Willie Snead and Miles Boykin round out that rotation, $4,000 and $1,800 for those guys. That means we're not interested in Devin Duvernay. We're not interested in Dez Bryant. Not interested in any of those guys. We're going to keep our rotation, our player pool pretty thin here. And that's going to do it. We know exactly what we have in terms of our options here this week. Why don't we take a look at our captain spot allocations here? And it seems as no surprise, my guy Stephon Diggs once again rises to the top. Tremendous opportunity for him to appear as the winning captain. Has had a fantastic year. And, just the way DraftKings scoring works, might be the most likely guy on the slate to hit a bonus of any sort. Stephon Diggs is a very, very strong player and has immense upside and can capture just like a strong number of the team's targets. Following him is Josh Allen. No surprise there. Mobile quarterback. I was a little surprised that Allen wasn't even on top of Diggs, but I'll take it. I'm definitely a Diggs truther. After that, it's Cole Beasley. So another receiving option there for Josh Allen before we get to Lamar Jackson. So not slam dunk matchup for Lamar Jackson or anything here against Buffalo. I feel okay about their ability to keep him out of the end zone. And if they can do that on the rushing side, Lamar has limited paths towards getting to the winning captain. Just has not been a prolific passer so far this year. After that, it's Mark Andrews, John Brown, Devin Singletary, J.K. Dobbins, Hollywood Brown, and then Gus Edwards. Let's take a look at our flex appearances where it's Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Lamar Jackson. So weird that, Lamar Jackson would be 3rd here on this list. But some of that's price point. He does have a really, really high price. Despite the fact we know he's got a pretty strong floor, that price is up there, especially on a slate where, I think the Sims are certainly saying that we need to prioritize this Allen Diggs stack. After that, it's Gus Edwards. That frees up a lot of salary for us. That makes a lot of sense for me. Cole Beasley, Devin Singletary, John Brown, Tyler Bass, Mark Andrews, J.K. Dobbins. So not a big fan of Dobbins there. And then you'll see Tucker, Hollywood Brown, and then TJ Yeldon. Now, this could obviously change if we get news around the running back rotation there in Buffalo. But overall, that's kind of where we're thinking. I think if you're looking at a spin-down running back, obviously Gus Edwards makes a lot more sense than TJ Yeldon does. There's no ambiguity. You know what the role is, and it's a pretty enticing role. So overall, that's going to do it here for us this week on the Captain Spot. We'll be back tomorrow on the Captain Spot YouTube channel. That'll be Sunday's game, the primetime game over there. This is kind of the last week for us to play sort of classic DFS on a 4-game slate. This is about as good as it gets. NFL playoffs, maybe the best entertainment product in sports. marketing and entertainment. So overall, I love this stuff, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed this stuff over the course of the season. We will have, I believe, one more show coming up for you here on Mayo Media Network. That'll do it for us here this week. We'll see you guys tomorrow over on the Captain Spot YouTube channel. Good luck, everybody.